Judas. Thanks for being here. And thanks, YouTube, for letting us be here. Hello, happy Easter. Thanks for being here. Welcome back to the Church of Judas. So, I wanted to talk specifically in this episode, or this meeting, if we have a meeting, and answer any questions of anybody who arrives, um, or any questions in the future. If you see this video in the future and want to leave any comments. So, I want to talk specifically about how Judas ends war, how the whole prophecy ends war. And there's a couple ways to think about it. One of them is from the perspective of Jesus and Judas having a secret conversation, which we now know about, since the Gospel of Judas was published 2006. And I wrote the book of Judas about it a few years ago, and have a lot to say about it. We can look at it from their perspective, or we can look at it from our perspective. How do you end war? Between these two perspectives, it's actually kind of a simple solution. Um, I could say it's too bad we didn't have the solution before, but like I said, the Gospel of Judas was published in 2006, so we have had this solution before, and we really could have figured it out maybe even before that was published if we just thought about it better and deeper. But, there's a reason why things are mysterious and, say, secret for 2,000 years. In this case, the reason was they destroyed every copy they could of the Gospel of Judas so that no one could know what this was all about. But I'll tell you now. And we'll get through how to end war. Let me just focus on that for right now. From Jesus and Judas's perspective, they have a conversation where Jesus says, hey, this religion that all these other disciples are going to get wrong is going to become a component of empires and war. What he specifically says to him is empires and war will stop and people will finally rule themselves around the same time you're revealed. Something about the way Judas is being revealed will bring about the end of empires and war. But these two events are connected, which to me seems like they're connected in the cause and effect kind of way. So as Judas's church replaces the Christianity that we've known, which is one of the first major points Jesus says, he's basically saying, look, everyone's going to hate you for 2,000 years because you seem like the bad guy for turning me in, although I'm asking you to do it. So, and that's the important thing to know. Judas isn't the bad guy because Jesus asked him to do it, which is the only thing that makes sense, since Jesus, knows what's going on. And, but he says, hey, you're going to be hated for this really long time. But that's a good thing in the long run because Judas has not been associated with all of Christianity that we know of. He's been rejected by all of it. He's an outsider to all of it. But he's also somebody who was close to Jesus. And in the end, sacrificed the body of Jesus at that time, which is why we celebrate Easter. Or he didn't sacrifice the body of Jesus, but he was instrumental in the Roman Empire, who we never blame the empire. We always blame some weird individuals. We blame people's individual sin instead of looking towards a system and the sins of the system that kill innocent people. Which is obviously the problem, the message behind Jesus. That don't try to overthrow a system that kills innocent people. Now the beauty and genius and miracle of Jesus is that he does end up overthrowing the evil system. Except we're the ones to do it. He does it through us at this time and through Judas. So let me get back to explaining how it ends for him. From their perspective, Jesus tells Judas, hey, when these other churches are replaced by your church, war will end. Empires will end. People will rule themselves. It seems like something we've been aspiring to, people ruling themselves. We have not really achieved anywhere yet, but we're going to now. Because empires will end and wars will end. If people were ruling themselves, who would choose war? Nobody. But obviously powers are ruling us. And so that's going to come to an end according to Jesus. That's going to come to an end at the same time Judas is revealed, which has happened now. So it should be coming to an end soon. Unfortunately, there's wars going on right now. So let me approach it from our perspective. Again, from Jesus and Judas's perspective, he can see the future. He says, hey, Judas, you're going to be left out of this for the whole time, but on purpose, because you're going to come back in and just like you're going to help the empire sacrifice my body at this time, you're going to sacrifice the body of Christ in the long run, the churches, to let them be replaced with something much more spiritual and good. I'm going to repurpose the churches and all the different branches of Christianity into one thing, but a one thing that instead of trying to replace all other religions in the world, tries to connect with them and restore them in the cases where it's wiped them out or helped wipe them out, and make up for the evils that Christianity had done in the past. So you're doing the opposite. Now this gets to our perspective. How do we end war from our perspective? Having seen what Christianity became and what the history of the world has been in all these years. Well, we do the opposite of what these things have been doing. So you have some really obviously bad strains of Christianity. There's probably more than the ones I'm about to mention. And please list them in comments so we can have further discussion. But like Trumpism, Putinism, Nazism, all these are Christian cults, Christian offshoots or cults, and a lot of other bad Christian cults too. There was one recently that starved a bunch of people. A bunch of people in their cult were starved, like hundreds of people, starting with kids. Just telltale signs that they're bad. We should know that Trump selling Bibles and fleecing all his victims and doing all the things that Putin wants him to do. Putin, trying to justify his wars and crimes with some type of Christian mantle. All these things are really obviously replays of the Fuhrer that came before him, according, as I say in my Put That Russian Bear to Bed, anti-war, anti-Putin song. And they're evil and they're antichrist. You can't blame Jesus for them, but you can blame Christianity, you can blame the church, and you can blame the antichrist elements within the church. So the whole point is Jesus saw that this Christianity was going to get corrupted, but also become the scaffolding for empires and wars. And it's kind of like being embedded in those things to take them down ultimately. It is pretty embedded. You can see this Christian connection, but we can replace all the Christian churches and all the Christian belief with just the real Jesus belief. Now, of course, everybody should know, Jesus is about peace and not war. So it's the churches that finagled some way to be about war and to be antichrist, and Jesus really isn't part of that. This is why the good thing about how evil these churches, and especially things like the Trump cult went, is, the ones that are super evil, like the Trump cult, you just do the opposite of them. Whatever they think, they're completely wrong about. So you just believe the opposite. If they think open borders are bad, it means open borders are good. So just have them. Just et cetera, et cetera. And then you'll get to the Jesus way of doing things because they've been doing things the Antichrist way. This works for war too. They have all these justifications for war. We call them out and say, no, these justifications aren't true. None of these wars are legitimate. And you got bigger fish to fry now because we're taking your churches. While you guys are out on the front lines in your tanks, we're here at your organs and pews and altars taking your churches. And we're not taking their churches by force the way they're taking countries by force. You're just taking their churches with the truth about what Jesus really had in mind and this secret plan, which I think is really exciting to talk about. It's kind of like a murder mystery because obviously Judas wouldn't kill himself in this case. So somebody murdered him, and who? Was it one of the disciples or some of the disciples? Is that why they had contrasting stories about what happened to him? Was it, authorities, etc.? But that's a good murder story. But even more than that, there's this mystery of why things took place the way they did, why Christianity became so central to these terrible colonial war and other just atrocities of human history, and how Jesus could be okay with that. If he's any good, how could he be good with that? Well, he was not good with that. That's the whole point, is that Jesus isn't a part of that. That's some antichrist stuff that he knew would take over his religion from the very beginning, which makes him seem really divine and powerful, or from the future or something, to see that stuff from the beginning. So it's a really good proof of Jesus being real. It's the fact that he saw it from the beginning and he called it out from the beginning and he told Judas about this. And now that anybody hears about this and knows that Judas is actually not just a good guy, but the other hero of the story, the guy who not only was sacrificed in his body, but his spirit, and unlike Jesus, who got praised for 2,000 years since then and loved for 2,000 years, has been hated and despised and outcast for 2,000 years since then. But the redemption of Judas, is so big and so grand. It's inspiring for the rest of us. What could, even though he didn't really do anything wrong, it's just our judgment upon him. But that's the case for most of us too. In many cases, people don't do anything wrong. It's just other people's judgment upon them, or a system that forces people to do things wrong or whatever, forces people into bad situations, is more to blame than people wanting to do some type of wrong or harm in this world. So anyway, we take the scapegoat out, or we realize the scapegoat is a tool of the system to perpetuate itself, to get us to blame each other or find the Judas or whatever, to blame some evil person when no, it's an evil system. and we can turn everybody around. And instead of being uh, oppressed by and victims of the system, just do away with that system, replace it with a better one, just like we can replace Christianity with a better religion. And when we do that, I think that'll be a big news story. So other religions that maybe could use some replacement can replace their bad elements with a good and loving and helpful to everyone version as well. So it can really be a worldwide change. It can make Christianity finally a religion that's on par to connect with the other religions of the world instead of always running around trying to destroy other religions, which is obviously a sign of insecurity and, well, antichrist, a sign of lots of things. So anyway, we do the opposite of that. And right now, there's genocides going on in many countries. Putin's against the people of Ukraine, but also Netanyahu's against the people of Gaza. Modi's against Muslims and other people in India, and on and on. And even though those are different religions, they're still taking their marching orders from Putin. They're still connected to this Putin, Trump, Antichrist Christian network, and they're replicating things that these Christian cults have done in the past. So again, we just do the opposite of what the Antichrist is when we have these obvious examples of the Antichrist, and we get to Christ, we get to Jesus, we get to the real thing. Judas is extremely helpful in helping us do that, and an instrument in helping us do that, just like he was an instrument for Jesus back in the day. But at this time, it's a spiritual thing to replace the body of Christ, the churches, with the more spiritual Jesus reality that's just been waiting for us to, I don't know, go through this cycle or something to get through all these terrible things about the world that he knew were going to happen because of patriarchy creeping in to corrupt his religion. This also pairs with the Gospel of Mary, which we had for 128 years, I think. 1896, I think it was discovered. And it says that Mary was the one Jesus picked to lead the disciples after he was gone, like on earth in that time. And then they all mansplained it away, or Peter especially mansplained it away. This is where patriarchy crept in. Why would Jesus tell Mary to be the leader if he knew they weren't going to let her be the leader? Because it emphasizes this point, and because she's probably the leader of the secret church, um, the true church that's been going on kind of in secret or in a spiritual way, in a spiritual dimension, while these corrupted male-dominated patriarchy crept in, end up leading to war and tyranny and stuff. Churches got things wrong for 2,000 years. So Jesus called a mulligan on that first 2,000 years. He's risen now in a new way than ever before because people can finally hear this message of Judas' side of the story, which explains Jesus was never down with any of this empire and war and stuff, but has a plan for replacing it, and we can all help with that plan. Anyway, thanks for being here on 13 minutes, which is nice because 13 figures into the Judas lore. But love you. God bless you. Jesus bless you. Judas bless you. Mary bless you. Easter Bunny bless you. I bless you. And bless yourself. Thanks for being in the Church of Jesus. See you guys very soon. And thanks for your comments.